budget last year, so I feel really comfortable with what we put in the food service. And so those are the 4 questions I received.
Any comments from the board, any discussion from the board or budget committee?
I have a couple of quick questions. I mean,
Yes.
easily explainable, I'm sure. I feel like I hate typing questions up in emails. And it's kind of generalization. There's a lot of items. Of course, everything goes up all the time. A lot have gone up a lot. Some have come down a little. Like, the resource room from 2023 to 2026 is double. I'm assuming that's because of the middle school. And a lot of these are probably because of that, but is that sustainable? I mean, I know we had to add middle school because we had, extra kids and it works, it's great. I'm not trying to say that, but is some of these items that are double, like, maintenance upkeep, went from 830 to 1.3,
And what page are you?
25. Just maintenance upkeep, building services. I mean, that to me is it's a $500,000 jump, and that's a huge increase. Again, are we expecting those numbers to go down some?
So some of these are on the salaries with the maintenance, like Dan, with transportation now is in maintenance.
Okay,
And so the transportation would be flip-flopped.
right,
The purchases, if you look at purchase services for maintenance, that's not a large increase, that's just for inflation. We have, let's give it an example. The fiscal services is also where I changed where people's FTE were at. So if you look at the total salaries, yes, there's increases because of payroll roll-up costs.
right.
So a large amount of our increases is due to the roll-up costs, which are a large percentage of your budget.
Is a state.
And as far as sped,
Yeah.
we went from 2
Mhm.
to 4.
Yeah.
Which had to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we're way over the 15% cap. I mean,
Mhm.
huge. And so we had to have, I mean, just to stay with the MOU or our, what's it called? Yeah, MOU. We had to make sure that we added that. And I don't see, I mean, with middle school having 25 plus, just one caseload, high school having 20 plus, one caseload. Every one of them, I think, are all 20 plus in the caseloads, and you just can't go any lower than that. I mean, so I think that's why we got that huge jump.
Right.
But we also we received money for high-class students.
Right.
So that is actual added revenue that we do receive to help offset that. Also in the sped, don't forget, we have a sped grant. I put that all in general fund. So this year I put it all in, whereas last year I might have put half because I knew we were getting it. I put it all in this year. So that is also part of the jump on the sped side.
Right.
And we have a lot more high cost students. So we have to make sure we have the aids appropriate for that.
Right.
But sustainability, we do receive more money for high cost disability. And we do a sex census, which shows all your sped kids each December. And so that also plays into the back on our state school fund as well.
Right. And all that makes sense. I just go pick out the numbers and I didn't put it in Excel and go through it all. Just when you go from an operating budget of, 8 point some million to 11 some million, that's scary.
Yeah.
Over 3 years. And, question sustainability is there, what's the percent increase the state gives for kids? Is that on par by
It's
any?
been going up, I don't know, 3 to 5%. The question is, what are we going to look at planning for, starting next year?
Right.
Which, you never know. But yeah, it has been going up. I think it's really a little less than roll-up costs, that's why the big public schools up north, and Eugene North are all kind of going down.
Right.
Because the roll-up is just more than the actual, what the state's giving.
Yeah.
So that, luckily we have had one of the only schools, if not the only school, have an increase in enrollment in the last 3 years. Whereas, so that's the big one.
Yeah.
Can we continue to sustain 550 or more? Because if we do, we're fine.
Yeah,
If we drop to 520, like everything else, trouble.
right,
Well, that's why it's also important to reduce your debt service.
right.
Right.
Which we can do.
And that's great. Yeah, I mean, that's obvious that, that's great. I just if it's 3 to 5% per kid annually, our cost goes up 30% annually.
Yeah, that's problem.
Yeah.
I'm a dull pencil dude. and it doesn't
Yeah,
Take
yeah.
much.
That is the double very first.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah, okay, I figured they're all, I just figured I would ask, kind of
Yeah,
make sure,
no,
I
good
just
question.
to get to thinking, boy, if it continues, if something goes
Yeah.
south, well, then you look at all these other school districts and, salaries, a huge expense, and you sit in the negotiations, and it's not sustainable if you were to, at some point, even a
Right.
little bit's not, I mean, so, but anyway, that's a different subject. But that's it.
Any other comments from the budget committee? Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I do want to offer my apologies for being late, not being here for budget last week. So I apologize if these discussions have already happened. I think for us, I mean, one for you, Lacey, you do an incredible job. I love to listen to you talk about the budget in a way that we can understand. My question is, in doing this work, what is the best support that we can give you or that we can watch as a board for the work that you're doing?
Just with the reports that I gave you monthly, if you analyze those, I try to keep it simple, but if you have questions on those, you can, because I don't get a lot of feedback, and so maybe start analyzing the reports that I give you.
Giving you
Give
some
it
hard,
to me.
some harder questions, challenge you a little
Maybe
bit,
not, yeah.
because we trust you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Because I don't know what you collectively, what's helpful for you to understand, how we're operating.
Yeah.
No,
If that makes sense.
And I like the reports, but I see someone's like, oh, 25 grand, what is
Yeah.
that for? Well, it's probably a good reason. I have faith in what you guys do and what Steve does, so I don't ask the question, but it's like, well, obviously, we must have had to pay a bill somewhere for something. And I guess I can just ask more, because to me, it's just it's a large increase proportionally, and
Well, and you sometimes, unless you're going through the whole 138 pages, you don't see the shift,
yeah,
where it's really not, on my end, it's not a lot of. The functions are different.
Right.
But,
Hard
to keep track of. Yeah.
30 pages.
yeah,
And my second question is for Superintendent Perkins. In terms of our board work, there are things that you hear in the state and the news that can make our blood pressure come up. When it comes to our school district and the anticipation that we had watching all these other the school districts roll through these budget catastrophes, and we've been able to stay really stable. What do you think is the most important for us to stay in that condition? Is that watching our enrollment? Would you say that our enrollment is our number one thing to pay attention to help keep us in that spot? Or is it watching the state to support increasing the cost per child? What would you say?
Well, it's both, but the enrollment drives your cost per child, right? So that, I mean, and any kind of drop, significant drop, and I'm talking, 10 or more, when you get into 10, you're talking about, $130,000, $140,000 out of revenue. And that's a teacher. Every 10 kids, maybe more like 8 kids is an FTE. So I think, the driver for us in budgeting is that we are going to become top heavy in the next 2 years. We're going to have nearly 50 kids a class at the high school, which is the high school is going to go from 115 kids to 190 in the next 2 years. So and we're graduating 24 or 25. So what's happened in the last 3 years since I've been here is that we graduate 27, we bring in 50 or 45. Okay. This year we're graduating, or last year, we graduated 33, but we only brought in 35. So that's only a positive 2. And really, when you talk about graduation rate and kindergarten start, you want a plus 10. And in a couple of years, when you get to this sophomore class that has 50 kids and they graduate 40, let's just say 45, okay, 90%. And if we don't start raising the kindergarten numbers, so you graduate 45 and you bring in 35, there's your minus 10. That's the biggest concern for the Myrtle Point School District, is that in the next 4 years, because we are, actually it's 6 years, we're top heavy. And then you're gonna talk about, okay, are we going to move teachers, or what are we gonna do to sustain that number? Like I said, so our classes 5 through 10 right now are high, the biggest ones in the district. And then our kinder and first grade are numbers 2 and 3 because our seniors are the lowest, okay?
Yeah.
And so that's not a good scenario, and that's something that has to be really, we have to consider as the budget rolls, and hoping that maybe we get 45 kinders next year rather than 36. You know, that's a really big, those numbers are huge. So it's really, you know, we drive budget on kinders. And so that's kind of, you know, where we're moving toward and what we'll do in the next couple, 3 years.
And then,
Right now, it's sustainable.
and then there's a possibility that if you start an online school,
Right.
you may,
And the idea with that is to retain kids and continue to sustain the numbers of kids that we have.
right?
And any kind of increase is just bonus, right? But sustaining the 550, which is I think a golden number for this district, 540 to 550, it's doable. But when you drop into the 520s, the 525, then you have issues. And the online school, if you can retain 15, 20, 25, 30, you know, whatever that's going to happen in the next 2 years, 3 years, will drive this district. So that's really what we need, and that's what we have to have.
And I'm kind of assuming the online kids is keeping them from leaving. Currently, it'll be gaining some that have already left.
Oh, absolutely.
But then it'll be a game of, instead of leaving, they'll stay in the
That's
district, but go.
So we're not going to give them a choice.
Yeah.
Honestly, when they want to go, when we're making the decision or their family's making the decision to go online, rather than, you know, they're not going to get the choice of they're not going to Winter Lakes. We're blocking that choice. They're coming, they're starting here. Now, if it doesn't work, then they can, you know, then they can do something else. But we're going to capture those kids, and we're going to capture several next year that are currently going to Winter Lakes. So we should get a little bit of, you know, like I said, we're kind of soft pedaling this thing, 10 to 15, maybe 20, 25. I mean, you know, I don't want to get, you don't want to get too big too quick, because you cannot handle it. You have to have someone there, you know, then you get into FTE. And I want to, you know, again, soft pedal that until we get to a point where we have to have an online teacher. There's got to be someone here. And honestly, that's 12 kids. 12 kids pays for a teacher, and we actually have excess revenue. You get to 15, you get to 20, it's all a bonus.
And we'll need that as we scale
Right.
down.
And that's why going through Edmentum, we don't have to have all the FTE. They're supplying all the FTE. That's their $2,500. That's their, you know, that's what they're, you know, for $2,500, we're getting all of that. We can't do it for $2,500, not even close.
Right.
So.
One of the first things you talked about when you started working with us is about trying to recruit kindergartners and the programs we should support or look towards to be able to bring in those kindergartners. And I can remember trying to look back, there are issues around early childhood education that transition you into kindergarten that we aren't able to offer, makes us less,
Even now that we have a full preschool program, I think we cover that base.
Okay.
And honestly, there's probably, I think we have 3 to 5 kids in this district that are online as kinders. I really don't want to go there, because I don't know what kind of education I can't even imagine now. But they're doing it. Honestly, they're doing it. So why not try it? You know, I don't want to jump into that. I really didn't want to jump into the K5 thing, but if that's where we have to go to retain kids, you know, and our own students, I say we try it. But I'll be the first one to say, this is not working. I mean, I want a quality education, and I'm not going to do that for a kinder that's not getting any Any,
Mhm.
we're receiving dollars, but they're getting no education. That's unfair.
Mhm.
And I won't go there.
Do you think the lack of childcare in this area is what's hurting us with the kindergartners?
It is, but it's, again, you know, you have the Coquille thing, and I don't know that it's worked or is working, per se. I just know that they are sustaining some dollars because, you know, they have childcare. You know, that's an expensive endeavor you know, of the school district
Mhm.
supplying childcare. It's expensive. And so again, that's another budgeting process that really would need to be researched
Mhm.
before you even jump into that, you know, going in that direction. Why are they going somewhere else? That would be our question.
Well, unfortunately, we have an area that does have entry-level housing.
Right.
That's,
Yeah.
I mean, you're not gonna fix that. I mean, there's no, so that's something out of control, but that is in my opinion, the driving factor
It's huge.
of how do you you can't navigate it. We have no control
Yeah.
of that.
And that, again, so those are the budgeting things. That's what we have to consider. As a budget committee, as a board, how do we retain kids? How do we keep them here versus, and then also try to make it quality. Quality is important.
What else? Good comments, good discussion. Well, that must lead us into,
Pearl, I do have one question.
yes,
And this is just because I haven't been part of the school board for a while or budgeting committee. So when federal dollars are reduced, how long does that usually last for?
Oh,
Maybe that's because I don't like politics that.
what? That's political. Depends on who's driving the country. And it really depends. I mean, and I hate, you know, that's just the way it is. So, you know, it really, whatever side you may be on, Democrat, Republican, it doesn't really matter because that's not what we do here because we don't do politics, right? But that's a political process. And, you know, it depends on your beliefs, but some believe that less government's better. And some believe that more government's better, whatever that may be. But currently, we're trying to decrease the federal spending. And that's gonna affect our federal funds. Has it substantially? No, it's minimal at best. In fact, we have more title dollars this year than next year than prior. So those are impactful for the huge districts that have all of those people in the federal budget process. And they can't sustain that. And then when you reduce it a little bit, it's hurtful for them. And then that's why they're all, you know, they either had ESSER dollars or federal dollars paying for a bunch of these FTE. Now they have neither, right? So you have a reduction in federal dollars and you have no ESSER dollars. So that's why you're seeing huge amounts of cuts up north. And we're small enough that if you look at other districts in our size around the state, they're not getting hammered. Unless 4 years ago, they opted to buy all sorts of specialists with ESSER dollars.
We didn't do that.
We did not do that. Myrtle Point did not do that, nor did my district in Port Orford do that.
No.
That you could not, but they did. That's why districts are getting hurt. So for us, you know, they're never going to shut that valve off, right? And it's if it just stays approximately the same, we're fine. I mean, and like I said, I don't think it's as variable as most people think.
But it's at least a 2-year thing, could be an 8-year thing.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
they're soft dollars. And I'm glad because you just answered my comment that I was going to talk about. The board, you and the board made a wise decision several years ago with the ESSER dollars. And like I said, you spend it on what you were supposed to spend it on and not on personnel. And that's why the districts around the state, some close by, they having to make big cuts. And so that was a wise decision.
And the bargaining, they
Right.
wanted us to give it to them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
It's not sustainable that way, like.
Right.
Any other comments? Well then, do I hear a motion? You look on the back of this comment, you some sample motions we need to pass the school district budget, and we need to set the permanent tax rate. Do I hear?
I move that the Myrtle Point School District budget for 26-27 in the aggregate amount of $19,965,916 be approved as recommended by staff. General fund, $11,655,000. Special revenue fund, $4,516,790. Debt service fund, $393,446. Capital projects fund, $2,500,000. Interagency fund, $75,000. Trust and agency funds, $825,500.
Do I hear a second? Second. Okay. Second by Greg. Okay, all in favor? Raise your hand, Greg. So I get passed. All right, now the permanent tax rate. Do I hear a motion for that?
I move that the permanent tax rate of 4.5152 per $1,000 value be levied in support of the general fund.
Second? I'll second. Second from Greg. All in favor, raise your right hand. Passes. Where's my gavel?
Thank you.
You bet.